Welcome to another edition of Double D's. Let's talk about it. As for today, we're going to talk about and touch a little bit on the AFC West as we continue our discussion on all things sports related, NFL, college. We'll talk family. We'll talk a little bit of faith and spirituality. We'll touch on a lot of different topics. And my name is Damian Deshawn. This is my co-host Davion, known as D. What's up, D? How you doing, man?
What's up, Damien? Let's get into it.
Let's get into it, man. I'll let you start off, man. We're getting into this AFC West thing, and as we transition from the AFC's lead representative being the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, I found that Denver has been the most intriguing member of that division with so many things they have going on cap wise, whether they want to come up off of Russ, all the complications in that, as far and as well as transitioning, possibly moving on from like Jerry Judy and some of their other players. I found that they do have some decent picks. Um, but I find it intriguing because they got a lot of money they're over the cap for, and they can't just come up off of Russ. You got anything to add with that, man?
Yeah, the Russ situation, everything that I keep seeing keeps talking about him being done. I saw something this morning which I want to get your take on. Do you think Russ can be completely done with football? Not just the player, but the person. And I hadn't thought about it because of the name Russell Wilson. But when you stop and think about all the so-called baggage that comes along with him, his
Mm-hmm.
teammates didn't really like him too much in Seattle before Sean Payton got there. When it was Hackett, they didn't too much care about him. He said he had a office uh, in the building and had his own coaches and stuff at practice. That was the whole thing last year after the hiring of Sean Payton. So I think it was Tim Hasselback this morning on I think on Get Up. He was talking about he thinks Russ could be done with football. And you think about it, his play as a player, he's not going to be your driving force to get you to the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
I
I
understand that.
thought that was I thought that was a I thought that was a an interesting take,
Mm-hmm.
and it made me think. And then when you start, looking at the big picture of Russell Wilson outside of just football,
Mm-hmm.
you think he could be done?
Yeah, I think Russ is the kind of guy that could segue his playing career into the usual broadcasting or in a realm there with him. He kind of wears his spirituality on his sleeve.
Yeah,
So, but I've heard some things too. He can be a bit of a prick,
yeah,
about the way he carries himself, and he can really rub teammates and other people the wrong way. But I think he has the personality and the look to transition into a broadcasting position.
yes,
If not on
definitely.
the national scene, he could broadcast Seattle games or announce Seattle games or either commentate Denver games. I see there's a realm for him in that field. There is a place for him there. Um, but yeah, to answer your question, man, I think he can transition and let go of football. I think he has other avenues. I just wonder if his attitude and his personality wouldn't rub colleagues
Yeah.
in another field the same way or the wrong way, like he's done as alienating certain teammates.
Right, right.
But as we talk about it though, man, I was thinking about some things also with Denver and even dealing with Russ's contract, they're like minus, 23 over the cap, 23 million. So they can't just come up off of him on June 1st and be able to be under the cap. I mean, they're gonna have to either trade or outright release or restructure some contracts to try to move some money around to even have enough money to even try to get some decent free agents to make a shot at least trying to get close to the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think if they do it post June, it spreads it out, but it's still a large
Hmm.
number to count against your cap. But like I said, everything that I've seen everything that I've seen thus far is talking about he'll know soon, or they'll let him know soon if they're going to keep him or not.
Hmm.
Sean Payton, everything that he did to him and how he was with him last year, I don't think he's coming back. I don't
Yeah.
see where he could go. And where the Broncos are picking, I don't see that you're not going to get one of those top three guys this year. You're not going to get the Caleb Williams, the Drake May, or the Jaden Daniels. So
No.
you're really you're gonna have to settle. Really, is it a Michael Penix, Bo Nix, JJ
Uh,
McCarthy,
McCarthy.
maybe?
Yeah.
So I mean,
It's a few of them here. I think I think is it Michael Pratt? Michael Pratt's out there. Or Spencer Rattler is
yeah,
another
in the
name
later,
that they
yeah,
could get later rounds. They may be
yeah,
picking later rounds, but I don't think they're in position unless they move up to possibly get a franchise unless they
right,
strike gold late,
right.
you know. Yeah, that's even some of the receivers. I heard a name mentioned, like I think he was injured, last name Bowles, that they may have to come up off of, and even possibly Jerry Judy, you know, to try to
I
make
know
some room.
Tim
Yeah,
Patrick, he's been hurt the last 2 years, and I think he's coming down on the last year of his deal. I want to say, so he
yeah,
could be someone that they're gonna have to do something to get some of that. Plus, you
some
still got to
cap
pay,
space.
and you're gonna have to pay Sertan.
Yeah, you
You're
got to
gonna
pay
have to
him.
pay Sertan. You're gonna have to pay him unless and I don't think Sean Payton is in the realm of doing a complete rebuild.
No, I don't think. You know
Yeah,
what? Who knows? They may test the free agent market for a quarterback. I also look at the fact that their number one needs aren't prioritizing quarterback, even though he's no Sean said he's interested in a quarterback. Offensive line is still a concern for them, particularly in the interior, that they're
yeah,
looking at possibly a center. So I would be on the lookout, and we'll cover that down the road about some of the needs that they need. But I know
right.
offensive line and defensive line depth are some of their major needs right now.
Yeah, I think
So
Justin Simmons is a big contract
yeah,
on defense at safety. They're
yeah,
gonna lose Fabian Moreau. He's a free agent, so you're only gonna have Patrick Surtain. So they're gonna have to do some building. And
yeah.
when you talk about the AFC West, you already got back-to-back Super Bowl champs. You got an
Hmm.
energized Raiders team coming that we're getting ready to talk about
Hmm.
with Antonio Pierce, and you got a
Hmm.
Jim Harbaugh led Chargers team.
Yeah. So
So
the whole face of that division is changing. The consistent is Kansas City.
the
But the
consistent
question of yeah,
is the top tier. Is
it's
the
the
top tier.
it's the
Yeah,
standard. Yeah, they're the
exactly,
standard right now. But then when you look
exactly.
at the other two, Denver is facing an uphill battle right now, but with them being so cash strapped in the cap, and then you got one rival who's the reigning Super Bowl champ, and then your other two rivals who look to be in better positions than you are right now, financially, cap wise, and even the ability to acquire talent
Right.
acquisition. So that leads me to lead into the Raiders, man. As we go into Vegas next, man, and they energized by they fired the previous coach. They took the interim, which is Antonio Pierce, hired him. He's made some changes to his staff already. You saw some life in him once they got acclimated to the things he wanted to do. They transitioned well. You can tell that they're already moving on from Garoppolo. I'm not sure about the backup. I don't remember his name. I know he came from Purdue. O'Connell, Aiden O'Connell.
O'Connell, Aiden
Yeah,
O'Connell.
yeah, he came from Purdue. I don't think they're looking at him as any franchise or bridge quarterback. I think they're going to try to go quarterback. And from what I've been following and hearing, they're keen in targeting Jaden Daniels. That's who they want. Their new OC runs a little bit of a conservative spread, but the way he runs it, they believe that Jaden could fit in with it well. They got some nice pieces on defense to build around because they did draft high on the D line. I know they do need a little bit more secondary, but they're still young in that area with what's his name, Smith, that they drafted in the secondary. They have I can't remember the corner's name, but they have some nice pieces on defense in their
They got
in their
Nate Hobbs
backcourt.
at
Nate Hobbs, that's who it was.
Nate Hobbs,
Uh-huh. Nate Hobbs, they drafted the defensive end out of Texas Tech last year. So the
Wilson.
defensive line, yeah, Wilson, the defensive line is not bad. on the offensive side of the ball, man, they do have some talent there. I think that I don't know the situation with Adams. I know there was a little bit of him being a little disgruntled about some things during the season, some frustrations, and I don't know if he would want to go and move with a rookie quarterback and trying to transition there when he's looking at, I'm in the latter years of my career. Do I want to stay here? So, I haven't heard anything about a trade or wanting to move on or them moving up off of him to try to possibly get a move up. He could be a possible trade piece because they have the 13th pick in the draft. So they could, they're going to possibly have to move up to try to get Jay
Yeah,
Daniels because I don't think he would be on the board at that point in
yeah.
time, especially when you look at the other two quarterbacks. He could be the third quarterback on the board taken off in the draft. So what's your opinions on their situation?
Oh, for the Raiders, I like Antonio Pierce. He seemed to have
Hmm.
gotten his team energized.
Hmm.
Like you said, him and Jaden Daniels, they go back to Arizona State.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's where he's going to go as well. That's everything that I've seen as well.
Hmm.
Um, I've seen reports that the Jets may try to trade for Devontae Adams and reunite him with Rodgers.
Uh-huh.
I don't, and I've also seen reports that said the Raiders wouldn't trade Devontae.
Okay. Okay.
I think ultimately because of I saw Antonio Pierce on the pivot Tuesday, or it might have been
Hmm.
last week, maybe, but he was on the
Hmm.
pivot and he was talking about the conversations that he's had with some of the leaders on the team. He brought
Right.
in Jack Jones from the Patriots, and you saw how well he played
Hmm.
opposite of Nate Hobbs. They have some
Hmm.
decent safeties. But
Hmm.
he said that he had conversation with the guys when he was just the linebacker coach before Josh McDaniels got fired,
Hmm.
and he can speak their language because he's a former player.
Hmm.
He's not taking no crap from nobody. He's not disrespecting nobody. He's not going to let people get disrespectful.
Hmm.
So I think they're going to either way. If they want Daniels, they're going to have to move up to get him. I think now the key could be Hunter Renfro because he wasn't really used a lot. They do
Hmm.
have him. Uh, they got Myers from New England, but
Jacoby Myers. Yeah.
that was really a Josh McDaniels, dealing type deal.
Uh-huh.
They got a nice young tight end. Um, I think you got to get rid of one of those to get up there to get Jaden Daniels. Josh Jacobs also a free agent.
Hmm.
He's also a free agent. So they got some work to do, but I think what he's building moving forward,
Hmm.
I think the Vegas Raiders are going to be all right.
Yeah. Now this is my opinion, and I know because I know how with the way media has presented the value of running backs now. I actually, in my opinion, I don't believe they may not try to resign unless they franchise Josh.
Yeah,
Because they'll look at it as we can get a running back a dime a dozen, and they have running backs with Zamir White and
as a White.
yeah, Zamir White. They can try to move forward with that and take that money that they would have had to pay Josh and put it towards some more defensive secondary or defensive front seven talent, preferably with
Right.
linebacker and their offensive line, because I know those are some needs that they have. Um, but going forward, even with the situation with Josh Jacobs, I just don't think with the way the NFL is now that they're going to invest in any running backs, man. Not with no big cash, not with
Yeah,
a lot of cash.
the reports I've seen were that they would be interested in re-signing him at the right price, but
Yeah.
that's every team with any running back. I'm a
Yep.
Colts fan. We held out forever with Jonathan Taylor. He's one of the top
Yeah.
two backs, or he's a top back in the league. So
League. Yeah.
yeah, so
Right. Well, the biggest news, man, moving forward, man, let's discuss these LA Chargers. I mean,
yes,
they
sir.
probably outside of the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, probably made the biggest amount of news in the division. I mean, you just signed and hired Jim Harbaugh as your head coach. You basically are bringing most of the University of Michigan football team
Michigan.
staff along with him. Um, And I look at the Chargers. We know they're not devoid of talent, man. They got a lot of talent on that team, and they have really underwhelmed and underachieved with that talent. They got elite level defensive talent. They got a more than enough talent on the offensive side of the ball. Um, it's just it seems like they just can't get out of their own way. And you watching a lot of their games, that's the way it played out. I mean, under the last coach's regime, I mean, it seems since Herbert has been there, they can't get out of their own way with a lot of things. So I look at it as this situation more than the X's and O's with them or personnel. It's about the attitude. I think what Harbaugh could bring an attitude with them. I think you're going to see a much more physical football team on the offensive
Yep,
side of the ball. I don't think
I
because I
agree.
mean Eckler can fit what Harbaugh wants to do, but I think with the what you that Herbert's going to have to change his game a little bit. I don't think they're going to air it out a lot. You know, there'll be
Mm.
a more balanced team and not just throwing to the running backs like they use Eckler a lot out of the backfield. I
And
think
he's a
you're going to
free
see
agent.
much. Yep. So I think you may see a transition. This is a situation just like Oakland. They're going to have to make a decision. Do they want to franchise him or let him walk if they can't re-sign him for the right price, or do they move on and find another back and that fits what they're going to do? Because I remember Harbaugh, even in San Francisco, they're going to run the freaking football. They're going to run between the tackles. They're going to be physical up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage. So I'm looking, even when we get to the segment and we start talking about drafting, I look for those kind of players, for them to acquire those kind of players that fit their
Blake
system.
Corum.
What's your opinion? Yeah, Blake Corum could be
Blake
a good
Corum.
pickup, a physical pickup. I look at another running back like a Trey Benson, who's 220,
Yeah.
who can run between the tackles and has breakaway speed. I mean, you got quite a few running backs, and you're going to find a lot of them that fall in the second round. I don't think there's any first round running back this year, to be honest with you.
No, I don't think so either. I
Yeah.
think for the LA Chargers, like you said, hiring Jim Harbaugh, I think they're going to be a physical team all around. I
Yeah.
want to say they hired Greg Roman as well.
Uh-huh.
I seen an update that they hired Greg Roman, but their issue this year is going to be money because they're in the hole when they have a bunch of big contracts. Derwin James,
Hmm.
Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Mike Williams, Keenan
Yeah.
Allen. You just re-signed Herbert, so you ain't gonna be able to keep everybody. Not gonna be
Yeah.
able to keep everybody. So, like you're talking about them bringing in a bunch of those Michigan staffers.
Staff members.
I can see some of these guys being on the move and then bringing in some of those Michigan players.
There's 19 combine invites from Michigan alone.
They got the most. I want to
Yeah,
say
they
they
got
broke
the
a record,
most.
didn't they?
Yeah,
Yeah, they
19,
broke
I
a
believe.
record.
Yeah.
We can
So
touch on that too once we get
yeah,
into our draft coverage. But
yeah.
I don't think there'll be a playoff team this year. But moving forward,
Hmm.
because you got to think we're gonna get ready to talk about the top dog soon, but they're gonna have to do some retooling too with some older players like Kelsey.
Yeah.
But Herbert has all the talent to be a top echelon quarterback. And I'm not
Hmm.
comparing anybody to Patrick Mahomes. It's Patrick Mahomes and everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's a far in a way a wide gap between 1 and 2 because Mahomes has shown he's that guy. Herbert has that talent. I think Herbert needs more of a leader. I don't think Staley was
That
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 type
that
of
he needs
leader.
a tough kind of a hard
He
nosed
needs
coach.
he needs a
Yeah.
tough coach that's gonna tell him, hey, chill out. Every ball don't have to be a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Touch the
Yeah.
ball, drop it where it needs to be dropped. Use touch when you need to use touch. Use your legs. Be smart. He's gonna get the pocket moving. So he'll be beneficial. He'll probably be the best coach thus far that Herbert's had. But as far as them being a playoff team and where they go moving forward this season, I think personally, my opinion is I feel like it's going to be too much financial things that they're going to have to do. You're trying to reshape your entire culture, like we
Yeah.
just talked about with Vegas. They're retooling with their players. Their culture should now be set
Intact.
from
Yeah.
what Antonio Pierce has pushed forward of how they're going to be playing football, how they're
Yeah.
going to practice, how they're going to conduct meetings, how they're going to move and operate. the Chargers, they're gonna have to get all of that going. The one thing that is tough for the LA Chargers, they don't really have a big fan base. They're gonna have to do something to get those fans worrying about the Chargers because you got so much stuff to do in LA,
Yeah,
especially when you got the Rams and
playing in
they've
the
already
same
won a Super
stadium.
Bowl. And
Yeah,
they've already won a Super Bowl.
yeah, that's
And
right,
they're
man.
they're they're a playoff team last year. What were the
Exactly,
Chargers? So
at home. But
right.
yeah, uh, with the Chargers, one more thing to touch on with them. With the I think I would see them probably coming up off the older players like a Mac. That's Mike Williams. At this point, it seems like, in my opinion, he's been a little bit more injured than he's been available.
Yeah.
And the best ability is availability. And
Availability.
not for long in that league, NFL, not for long. So, and this, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see them let someone like a Williams or Matt go, because this is for example, with Williams, this is a wide receiver heavy draft. You could get a
Heavy.
you could get a wide receiver in the third round
Heavy.
that could turn out to be
Roman
a
Wilson.
steal. Yeah,
Roman
Roman
Wilson.
Wilson sitting there. I mean,
And it's
you got probably 2 to 3 wide receivers that are guaranteed first rounders, but you could get first round or second round talent going into the later rounds.
yeah, and he's like we just said, he's got 19 of his Michigan guys coming.
Yeah.
So some of the players, some of the positions that they will need, he has them coming. They drafted I think you pronounce his name Tuipulotu from Ohio State last year. So they can come off of Bosa or Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
Mack is older. It's crazy. They had the same exact situation at the receiver position that they do at the rush position. Khalil Mack is older. Joey Bosa stays hurt. Keenan Allen's older. Mike Williams stays
hurt. Yeah.
So
That's even getting into
those
Derwin
are
too.
four major contracts. Those are 4 major contracts. I want to say Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa have matter of fact, they might have like 70 million combined, and Mike Williams and Keenan Allen might have about 70 million combined for what they have contract wise. So somebody's gonna have to go, or there's gonna have to be some restructuring going. Yeah. The crazy thing about it is they might end up on defense keeping the more injured Joey Bosa, and on offense keeping the older Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
So
make the decision, because you're looking at it. Okay, like I said before, we segue on to the next team. Keeping Bosa makes more sense than keeping Mack because of his age. And at wide receiver, it's more, they're like I said, they're more apt to be able to find a replacement for Williams than they are to find a replacement if they let a Bosa go. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think this is a defensive end heavy draft. There's talent, but as far as top end talent in the later rounds, I don't think so.
It's a big gap. It's a big gap from the
first
top
two
guys to the mid range guys.
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
It's not as heavy at wide receiver. Same thing with quarterback this year.
Yeah. So as we drop off the Chargers, we pick up the champs, man.
Back to back.
I mean, back to back. What else can you say with Pat, man? I mean, I look at it here with them. We already discussed when we did our Super Bowl edition. We was talking about Chris Jones. Re-signing him is the number one priority. Him and then Snead. I mean, but when you look at the offensive side of the ball, you don't really. I mean, anything they add is basically a cherry on top at this point.
That's it.
I mean, it is. I mean, because we sitting here and we can ask the question, which you had asked me, is Rashee Rice a number one? Does he have to be when your quarterback is that?
Right.
Because quarterbacks like Mahomes makes wide receivers like Rashee Rice a number one, period.
Yep.
You can make a number two a number one when you have that kind of quarterback. We've seen it. We've seen it with Brett Favre. We've seen it with Aaron Rodgers. You know what I'm saying? Even to an extent, Ben Roethlisberger. These kind of quarterbacks can
Brady.
Yeah, Tom Brady. Tom Brady made number threes number ones.
Number ones.
Yeah. So what do we? anything else dealing with the Chiefs, you add, yeah, they can add an elite. This is the draft. If they want to do it, they can do it, especially in the position that they're going to be drafting from. They can find a serious talent at the later in the draft at wide receiver. But
Yeah.
in my opinion, I would still them first priority is still fix that offensive line some more. I would add
And
more to the offensive line.
you got through the season, I think they had the worst two tackles, but through the playoffs, the line played solid.
Yeah.
Jawan Taylor, they're gonna have to. That I think that's a big cap hit because they just signed him last year. Donovan Smith was on a 1-year deal, so they'll be able to get a older tackle if that's the route they choose to go again.
Oh,
My opinion. Well, first before we keep going on, thoughts and prayers are with all the people who happen, were at the Super Bowl.
yeah,
That senseless act
yeah.
in a time of celebration and whatnot. So, want to say that first, but this draft, well, before yesterday, Chris Jones said he wasn't going anywhere. He's already got his big bag. He's probably thinking more along the line of a repeat or a three-peat. I think they're going to work. They'll be able to work something out.
I got you.
They were heavy in the draft the previous years at the cornerback position. They may lose Snead. They may lose Snead. This year, what I think they should be doing, because you said it's so deep, a wide receiver draft class, I'd start trying to find me a Travis Kelce replacement, somebody for Kelce to start grooming. And
that's
I
good.
think Jatavian Sanders from Texas.
Yeah.
He could be someone that could be there in the tail end of the first round, beginning of the second round. Sometimes those teams that are in the back half of the first round, they usually trade out. If they're able to trade out and accumulate some stuff and able to get a Jatavian Sanders, and then you still pick up a nice wide receiver weapon, because you can get some older wide receiver, Mike Evans in free agency, D-Hop could possibly be a free agent, OBJ's a free agent.
Yeah.
You saw, like we've already talked about, we've seen what Patrick Mahomes can do when he doesn't have a Tyreek Hill, when he has the worst wide receiving core when it comes to drops. MVS will most likely get released. That'll save them $12 million.
Yeah.
They'll be able to finagle some things. Now, the problem is if they end up keeping Chris Jones and Snead, everything else is like you said, is cherry on top. Everything else is just a cherry on top. But I would start trying to find me a nice young tight end to start literally mirroring Travis Kelce. Because when Gronk left Tom, he didn't have that guy. He didn't have his go-to guy.
Safety blanket.
Safety blanket. Start. And one thing about Andy Reid's going to call the plays. Sanders is a freaking freak of an athlete. He wasn't really utilized this much this past season at Texas. But you get a player like that with Patrick Mahomes. If I'm in the draft and I'm a tight end, wherever Patrick Mahomes is going to work out, I'm going to work out, because that's what Rashee Rice did last year, and they ended up drafting him. He told Andy, I want that guy. And you see what he did. You see what he did. Because they, like I said, they can get that burner to separate somewhere throughout free agency. They have enough picks. They've built up their defense. They had the youngest defense. They don't really have many holes. So it is most likely going to be some of those tackles and making sure that we continue to build and get players around 15.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head as far as when you mentioned tight end position. I mean, I know preferably two. Of course, there's Jaheim Bell at Florida State. He's a little undersized to be that lead tight end, but he fit.
Bell, he would be nice too.
Yeah, like what's his name? Like Juice Tech. I think he could be utilized like him a lot at San Francisco. how they use
Yes.
their fullback. He could be used like that. And then of course everyone knows Brock
Mm-hmm.
Bowers at Georgia. But there's no way unless they sell the farm to move up
He'll be long
that he would
gone.
even be on the
Yeah, he'll be
board.
long
Yeah.
gone.
He's not even going to be on the board. Um, but with the situation there with tight end, I'm gonna delve into that and find some or dig into it and find some more information once I have it saved, the list of all the combine invites, so I can get.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty much I know there's somebody from Iowa that's good too. So Iowa and Utah,
Eric
as far as
All.
the tight end position, yeah, Eric All
Eric All.
transferred from Michigan. He
I think
transferred
that's his
from
name.
Michigan. Yeah, Eric
Yeah.
All.
Eric All.
Somebody like that, you can find a tight end. I mean, this isn't a I think it's more top heavy, but I think you can get some trendy not trendy, some talented players late at that position that can be groomed and be able to fit
Yeah.
their culture and their system late. Um I think defensively, I think on the D line, they may on the interior may want to look somewhere too.
Yeah, they're gonna have to
Because
beef up. They're gonna have to beef
yeah,
up.
to beef up a little bit more because they did use a lot of free agents that really played well for them, and they had injuries also. So they may want to start looking to get a little younger there because Chris Jones is what? He's not a young lion anymore. He's in his
30?
prime. Yeah, he's in his
30,
prime though. Yeah.
yeah.
And like
If they give him a three-year deal, this would probably be his
mhm.
last contract.
Last contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's in his prime. And I think what like when you said with his contract, I think he's looking more sort of legacy now than he is
Legacy.
just getting the biggest bag.
Yeah.
Because I think he done made the biggest amount of money. He wants to stay there. He's comfortable, and he's looking at okay, I done been to this many Super Bowls. I got what three of them.
Three.
Is it three?
Three.
I mean,
Mhm.
he's pretty much now in the position of when you get rings like that and you're a noted name, you're looking now, what's the next step? What I need to do to put my position into
He going to the
Hall
Hall
of
of
Fame.
Fame.
Exactly.
He'll be a Hall of Famer.
But
Yep.
what's the difference between me being a first ballot and a later down ballot Hall of Famer? That's what he's looking at now. You
Yep.
know, I already got two first ballot guys on the roster. I want to be a first ballot. I think that's where he's in the place of looking at legacy now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And right now, I think he's too set in life. He's not 24. He's not 25.
Yeah.
Once you know out there, once you get in your 30s, you kind of trying to smooth sail.
Yeah.
You don't want to
Let me
disrupt. You don't want to disrupt too much. So I think him staying will be the best thing. Now Snead, like I said, he's on the other hand. He's 27, 26,
uh-huh.
27. He's a younger guy. He's gonna want to break the bank. He's gonna want to be that top paid corner.
Yeah.
I don't know that Kansas City's gonna be able to do both. Now, if they all come together with that team mindset and
Uh-huh.
everyone's willing to take a little less for the bigger picture,
Uh-huh.
because Patrick Mahomes' deal is so long, it's team friendly, and every other year they're just gonna keep redoing it. He won't be going anywhere. He won't be going anywhere, and they already see I'm comfortable in this system. I got the best playoff defensive coordinator. I got the
Mm-hmm.
best quarterback, one of the top, if not the top head coach. Why would I want to
Mm-hmm.
leave?
Well, I was able to pull up the list of just the tight ends who are invited to the combine, and you mentioned Jatavion Sanders. As I look, I see another name like Cade Stover from Ohio
Stover.
State. I mentioned Bell from Florida State and Brock Bowers, and you mentioned Eric All from Iowa. It's another one I'm looking here. It's what's the name from South Carolina? Trey Knox is
Knox,
another
he's a
name.
wide.
Yeah,
He's a former wide receiver from Arkansas.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I was saying. If it was me, because I have the youngest defense, I'm not unless I lose L'Jarius Sneed.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't lose him or Chris Jones, you don't have a glaring need on your defense.
Nope.
Travis Kelce played down this year. He got hurt this year. First year, I believe that he's gotten hurt. The wide
Mm-hmm.
receivers were down. I'm going to get me a Jatavion Sanders because I know the talent that he has as far as a tight end. And he's going to be an early second, late first round pick, maybe even second or third. So he's somebody that they can get. Trey Knox is
Mm-hmm.
another one, wide receiver, wide receiver attributes with a tight end body. Johnny Wilson out of your
Yeah.
Florida State. Your
I
Florida
was
State
trying not to
is
sound
somebody,
biased.
but out of but with his size, his speed, his
Yeah.
ability, can he learn? Can he learn? Because if you watch Travis Kelce, and the reason why I said that, Travis Kelce is damn near unguardable. Like
Yeah.
the dude is always open, and it's because he doesn't run conventional routes. Like
Yeah.
he runs everything with what he feels and what he sees. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
if you get you another tight end or a tight end frame like Johnny Wilson, that
Mm-hmm.
literally they shadow him on every single thing to where they're in sync with him with Pat, like Kelce
Mm-hmm.
is. When Kelce does leave, because he's 34, he's not
Mm-hmm.
going to play for another 10 years. You know what I'm saying?
No,
He's not going to
I
play
think
for
he probably
another
got
3-4 years.
no. I think he got probably maybe 2 years tops left.
2
But who
years
knows?
top.
Because that prime, when that number hits you, when that time hits, it could hit him. He could look like he looked in the Super Bowl, and next year you could already see the decline just hit like that.
Especially with injury. And the thing is, like, what I
Yep.
think what we always fail to realize is, like, everyone was counting the Chiefs out when they played the Lions beginning of the year. The Chiefs
Mm-hmm.
were still playing in February. The Lions weren't.
Yep.
Their bodies are more rested and all that. The 49ers, they just had an injury, Greenlaw. That's
Mm-hmm.
in February. He's probably not going to play this season. He tore his Achilles.
Yeah. You
You
won't
see what I'm
probably
saying?
see
So
him
now
if you see him at all mid-season, if that.
mid-season next year, it'll probably be next year, unless he's
Yeah.
on the Aaron Rodgers, whatever stuff he
Adrian
on, going on
Peterson.
darkness
Yeah.
streets.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? But I would definitely get me somebody in case Kelce goes down, or you have to start load managing Kelce. Start using
Yeah.
the regular season, like, hey, Travis, chill, let the young guy get some, let him get going. We
Yeah.
already know what you're going to do, so you ain't got to play a high number of snaps. Once we get to the playoffs, take over like you do.
Yeah. Well, as we close out this discussion on the AFC West, man, and we just broke down all four teams. We talked about we just talked about Kansas City, and I'll close out with this on Kansas City and leave it at that. Anything, as you said, anything they add, if they can re-sign the key points on defense, the key personnel members, is not but a cherry on top. It's all gravy. Um, but some
Let me
news
ask you a
broke.
question. Let me
Uh-huh.
ask you a question before you go into the breaking news. All right?
Okay.
Because this is the question that I had when it came to the Chiefs. Do you think that they can three-peat?
I
It's
do.
never been done.
It's never been done.
Never
I
been
think
done.
it's possible. You know what? What I think the most thing that's possible, because you know how the NFL is, and you know how anybody can get got in this situation. Um, I think they could be in a situation where they get there and they finally lose to the team. I think they can make it at least to the AFC or the Super Bowl, but they may catch that L in either one of them games. I'm gonna leave it at that. They if they don't three-peat, that's what's gonna happen. They're gonna either lose in the title game or the actual Super Bowl. But I think they'll
I
be in
think
position.
just looking at it, man, I think they're going to three-peat.
You
As of
do?
right now, seeing what Patrick Mahomes did, because you got to think now as we talk, to get first off, you got to get to the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get to the playoffs, you got to go through your division. We sitting here talking about the AFC West. Everybody's going to be looking to rebuild some form or fashion.
You got a point. So
Two
those are
teams are going to need
guaranteed
a quarterback.
wins.
Two
Mm-hmm.
teams are going to need a quarterback. Another team is going to look completely different because of finances.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to get into the playoffs. The only way to do that is to beat your division. I feel like they should still be favored in their division. Then when
Mm-hmm.
you look at the other teams, and we'll get into them as we break them down, but the AFC North is a tough division. Whoever come out of there is going to be beat up.
Yeah.
The AFC South, depending on what the Colts, do, the Jaguars, Texans
Mm-hmm.
look good. Titans would
Yeah.
probably be trying to rebuild.
Yeah.
I like
I
Patrick
think they
Mahomes
ought to
over
rebuild.
any of those quarterbacks. I like Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
AFC East, same thing. Tua, Aaron Rodgers, Josh, they'll probably be beating up on each other.
Mhm.
I like
And then
Aaron.
whoever the Patriots take. Mhm.
I like Pat over. I like Pat over all the AFC quarterbacks. I think
You got a
Patrick
point.
Mahomes. I think when you play Patrick Mahomes and you are one of those quarterbacks that they consider elite with him, he puts too much pressure on you.
That's a good comment, man, because I'm thinking about it. What you just said got me thinking about, you look at the era that Brady played in. I think this is an era where you see Pat truly doesn't have any peers.
At all.
Brady was Brady, but he still had Breeze. He had to deal with Manning. He had Rodgers. Those guys will be
Yep.
considered, even though they didn't win as many rings, they're his peers because equal talent, and they maximized their ability. All of those are Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Who are
If you
your
give them the
Pat doesn't
team
have that.
he
Yeah,
had, they can do what he do.
yeah.
No quarterback. No
Right
quarterback. And
now,
I ain't mean to step on you, bro. My bad.
you good, you good. But I was just thinking, I was like, okay, there are good quarterbacks. Lamar, you got Joe, but there's
Herbert,
question. Yeah, Herbert. Then you go to the NFC, it's Dak. You got, I guess you say Jalen Hurts, Brock. Um, I mean, but that
Jordan Love played ball
Jordan
this year.
Love, but they're younger, so you're seeing a lot. It looks like he's at his prime in a transition period for a lot of teams where
And
you're
what's
seeing
crazy,
quarterbacks transitioning in and out.
what's crazy is when it was Tom, especially Tom's last, 6, 7 years,
Yeah,
Tom was the oldest quarterback.
yeah,
Patrick Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes is stepping into his prime with
prime.
Josh Allen, with Lamar, with Herbert, with
Yeah,
Tua, with whoever you want to call, and look at his resume compared to everybody else's. That's why I said, and then when you see how he played this postseason,
hmm
it was that no moment was ever too big for him. And when you need a game and you need the ball in somebody's hand, you
hmm
got to say you want 15, man. You
yeah.
got to say you want 15. That's why I
You
think
want
they'll
15.
three-peat.
I
That's why I
got
really
you.
think they'll three-peat. And
That's a bad. I mean, you
we'll
gave
break
valid
it down
point.
because we'll break more of it down, and we can even finish out before we move into the to the draft talk and the combine talk,
hmm
and touch on this more once we hit all the divisions.
hmm
Because as we hit them, bro, you're gonna see that I don't see a quarterback that can touch him.
Yeah, you're right. I
But go
mean,
ahead, let's
not
get to the
not on the
breaking
equal
news.
level, but the breaking news, man. It broke earlier, which was a little shocking. But as I read a little bit more on it, I still don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand it. With when you're talking about business, is Kyle Shanahan decided to fire Wilkes, the defensive coordinator. Um, I was looking at it, and of course, you're gonna see some social parallels. They say he was released because of this, because he was okay. They released the black man, you know.
That's always gonna be
But
there.
yeah, it's always gonna be there. And they look at it, and you know what? I had my opinions about it, and I look at it like this. There were some things that was said about some mistakes that he made, not just in the Super Bowl, but they were looking at they discussed the overall performance of the defense. I think San Francisco's defense last year was what, number 2 in the league?
Mhm.
Not this past season, but the season before.
Yeah.
Where were they this year? Were they in the 20s this year?
No, so that was only in run. So
Okay.
overall defense, the first 14 weeks, they were the
Yeah.
number one defense. They were the number one defense. They finished the overall third defense. Most of the numbers outside of rushing yards a game, I think Wilkes actually was better than D'Amico Ryans.
Mhm.
D'Amico Ryans didn't take that team to the Super Bowl. Robert Saleh took the team to the Super Bowl and they
Mhm.
lost still, but he ended up with a head coaching gig.
Mhm.
Steve Wilkes got fired. In my opinion, I don't care if he was black, white, blue, or green. He
Yeah.
got
Uh-huh.
he got scapegoated
Oh, he
because
did. He did.
uh, he held Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, just how we were just talking about how good the Chiefs were this postseason. Going into halftime of the Super Bowl,
Mhm.
they had 3 points. When they scored a touchdown, it was off the muffed kick. off the muff punt.
That's not on
They got
him.
they got the ball at the 15, 16-yard line. That's not on the defense. What
Yeah.
about what are you, in my opinion, because I heard that they said Kyle Shanahan's response to it was he didn't agree with the schematics of it. You were just in the Super Bowl. You go have a conversation with your defensive coordinator and you let him know, hey, look, this is what I want to do moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
He was heavy reliant on his secondary. And here's the thing: Greenlaw got hurt, Hufanga got hurt.
Yeah, he
You
did have a
had
lot of personnel missing.
4 or 5 all pros on offense. You're an offensive-minded genius, is what Kyle Shanahan is called.
Mm-hmm.
You only put up 19 points in regulation. With all those all pros,
You had the better team. You didn't. We
you
already
had the
discussed this.
overall
Your
better
better
team.
team. Your personnel. You give, like we said, you give Mahomes Debo. You give him Ayuk. You give him
Switch
Jennings.
Brock
You
and
give him
Mahomes.
You
Switch
give him
Brock and
McCaffrey.
Mahomes.
You give him Kittle.
It's a
You
wrap.
give him Kittle. It's a wrap. You give him Trent Williams at
And
left
he'll
tackle.
never got to worry about his blind side.
Exactly. What do we do? I get it. What are we talking about? But to stay on this topic here, but segue with Wilkes, man, he can't catch a break. Cause see how they did.
I
They
hate it
did.
for
They
him.
should have hired him in Carolina. He took over the
He shouldn't
interim
have got
position.
fired in Arizona.
Exactly. I mean, Arizona. Then you had the situation in Carolina. They didn't bother even to seriously considered him. I think they
Not
just
at all.
Rooney ruled the situation.
Yeah.
They Rooney ruled it, and then they went with what we already knew was a bad hire. The minute they
Yep.
hired Frank right there, we knew, what are y'all? Y'all not serious. Y'all not serious
At
about
all.
football at all. Because we saw the disaster he left behind in Indianapolis. It was horrible. So I'm wondering, because I already said it, I'd take him in Dallas. I know they were looking
Well,
for a D coordinator. I'd take Wilkes
here's
in
the
Dallas.
thing. Here's the thing. All the positions are filled.
Exactly. And you
That's
put
that.
him in a bad position.
That's why I hate it. That's why I hate it. All of the positions are already filled. You touched a little bit on the Carolina thing. If we go back to the Raiders, Max Crosby told the owner, if AP's not our coach, I'm going to request a trade.
Yeah.
You had players telling the owner, hey, we want it to be Wilkes. We would want it to be Wilkes. The owner, David Tepper, didn't care. Hired Frank Wright. You fire Frank Wright before the season's over.
Yep.
So you
And
already
that
going
man,
on with an interim
and you had
coach.
games to prove. I mean, he
Yeah.
proved it because he made them respectable. And the deep, you can even see the Carolina's defense to drop off once
Yeah.
he was no longer the DC. Burns tailed back from his all-pro year. Didn't he have an all-pro year that year? And then the next year, he tailed off. I mean, the whole team just looked in shambles. Anyway, I mean, they had a rookie quarterback and all that, but there was some things that NFL teams shouldn't
It's
look
poor
like they were
offensive
looking like.
line.
Yeah, they shouldn't look
Yeah.
like that. But going in with one more thing to add with Wilkes, and then I'll let you get your last comments in. With no positions, would you think he'd take he'd have to take a demotion, basically possible position coach, and then move back into a coordinator position? Or would you think he'd probably be interested in maybe a college position?
I think so. From everything that I've seen and read, he has a lot of ties through the NFL. He has a lot of relationships. So somebody may give him a assistant head coach type gig, just to get him
Get him in the
going.
door. Yeah.
Get him in the door and get him on a staff or something. But I thought too, because I knew Colorado needed a DC, but they just recently signed one. I don't know if he would want to go back to college. I don't know his ties to college. I know he went to a HBCU. I think Savannah State is where he went.
Yeah.
I highly doubt he would want to go back that far to coach. just pay wise and all that. I think he'll
Yeah.
stay in the NFL. I hate it.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan's excuse was trash to me. The whole situation, like you said, Arizona, he didn't really get a fair shake. The next year, you hired Cliff Kingsbury because he got ties to Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray cusses him out in the middle of a
Disaster.
game. In the middle of a game, so
Disaster.
your quarterback has no respect for you. You go to Carolina, Matt Rule gets fired. You're the interim coach. The team rallies. They play well. And if you think the NFC South, and we'll talk about them later on,
Mm-hmm.
NFC South was a winnable division. Winnable division. He played well, got him up out of there. He took and led a defense to the Super Bowl. He held Patrick Mahomes to 3 points going into halftime. Every time they left the field, outside of the muffed punt,
Mm-hmm.
the Niners were up. Kyle Shanahan, stand up, take some blame for it. And
Accountability.
my last comment on it, bro, is I watched Nightcap, and I wanted to see what Shannon Sharp had to say because Shannon played for his dad,
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey's dad. Shannon talked about how he was kind of biased in the Super Bowl. He wanted to see them play because he knew Kyle since he was a kid. Christian McCaffrey before he was, when he was a baby or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Shannon's response was straightforward. And I think every time he speaks, he's he's straightforward every time he gives his opinion. I think he dies down whatever emotional ties he has to whatever topic he's talking about. But he said Kyle, he didn't agree with it. He didn't agree with it either because out of all of the things you want to say schematically you didn't agree with, you're the head coach. You don't fire him. And after he took a team to the Super Bowl, he helped you take a team to the Super Bowl. You've been to the Super Bowl 3 times. 3 times. All 3 times you've had at least a 10-point lead.
Yeah.
All 3 times you lost. Twice as a head coach, once as an OC. Christian McCaffrey should have had the ball 40 or 50 times. Elijah Mitchell, put Debo in the backfield. You had 5 All-Pros. Debo didn't make an impact. Kittle didn't make an impact. Ayuk, I don't think he's an All-Pro, but I think he was a Pro Bowler.
Yeah,
he didn't
was.
make an impact. He didn't make an impact. Christian McCaffrey was the only one who made an impact. You took the ball out of his belly and started tossing it around with Mr. Irrelevant, and you let Patrick Mahomes stand around and stay around too long. Eventually, he took the game from you, and that's what he's going to do. I don't think you can blame that on Wilkes.
No, because you look at the first
you took
half.
the ball first.
Yeah.
You took the ball first going into overtime. If you're going to take the ball first and you drive down the field, you go for it. Screw kicking that field goal. Now I got to kick off. If I go for it and don't get it, he's got to drive 80, 90 yards.
Against a rested defense, and you're right. And you go back and look at that game. I mean, San Francisco's defense was more impactful. Because if you look at the fact that San Francisco, one of their touchdowns was scored on a trick play. It's not like it wasn't a conventional offensive play.
Right.
And even on that play, it was some question marks about it was possible holding on that play. Yeah. So when you look at
downfield.
Yep. Exactly. So you look at that, man, and you're like, I mean, watching the game, we all know that San Francisco's defense pretty much, even minus Greenlaw, they showed up. Of course, they showed up. I mean, they just fought. The current GOAT, they just had to deal with that in overtime. But for the majority of that game, they controlled it. They controlled the line of scrimmage for majority of that game. It wasn't until Kansas City on their defense started controlling the offensive side of the ball for San Francisco. Outside of the overtime where you started to see them run the ball. Why didn't they run the ball? That's on Shanahan.
That's on him.
That's on Shanahan. San Francisco wins that game if they control the line of scrimmage like they did in the first 2 quarters.
The people I watched the game with, I don't remember if it was overtime or if it was in the fourth quarter. But Wilkes had a call, and Shanahan ran out, calling timeout. And you could see him mouth, "What the F are you doing?" I was telling the people that I was watching the game with, he gonna scapegoat Wilkes. He gonna
Yeah.
scapegoat Wilkes. He gonna scapegoat Wilkes, man.
Yeah.
There's no freaking way. There's no freaking way that you, and in my opinion, when I say scapegoat, it's like he took the blame and put it at Wilkes' feet.
Because what
It
you did,
wasn't like,
because
hey, it wasn't like a hey, we lost. I messed up a lot the
yeah,
whole season. I didn't agree with the schematics or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But how did you not agree with the schematics and hire him anyways?
exactly. It was not a problem when it got you. I mean, I heard some people before we close out though. They referenced the Detroit game, and they were looking at some of the things the defense did on that side of the ball against Detroit. And I don't know any necessarily any details, but that was referenced as some other things that they're trying to throw out there as some possibilities of why he fired him.
Yeah,
But
I saw that too. Look how
yeah,
the offense played. Look how the offense
yeah,
played against the Packers.
yeah,
The Packers had 2 interceptions that they dropped.
yeah,
You're doing 3 and out. If I'm on defense and I'm giving up 10 plays and then they're punting. I'm giving up 8 plays and then they're punting. I'm giving up 9 plays and they're punting. You're out there for 3 and right back over here. Well, you're keeping the defense. You're not helping the defense by keeping them on the field that long.
yeah.
My last comment. Now they're talking about possibly hiring Staley from the Chargers as their
Oh,
DC, the
okay.
head coach for
All
the
right.
Chargers.
And on that note, we're gonna close it out. I like to thank everybody for viewing and watching. D, I appreciate you, man. Y'all make sure to like,
Appreciate it.
share, and subscribe.
Yes, sir.
Thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
another episode of D's, Double D's.
Comment.
Let's talk about it. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe, and we really thank y'all. Peace out.